Hello and welcome back to my channel, Retire Abroad Finance. My name is Martha, and the subject of today's video is a short walkthrough and review of Snowball Analytics. This is a software tool online that I use to be able to plan for our retirement, especially with the dividend flows that we're going to be using to help cover our 7 bridge years before we start to collect Social Security. I will link a video here that explains my bucket system. If you're interested in that, please feel free to go to that and watch it and give me feedback. I started using Snowball Analytics about a year ago. Prior to this, I was using spreadsheets, and so I had, I'll drop a picture of the spreadsheet that I built here. It gave me, a running look at, how my dividends were performing. Everything was reinvested automatically. I wasn't using any of it as cash. It was on what they call DRIP, Dividend Reinvestment Program. Um, but I could see very easily with my spreadsheets how much I made from month to month to month. I could see by stock. I could see, I'll show you the spreadsheet, but I built it myself. I don't really have it available for a download, but someday I will. I'll share it as a free tool and you can personalize it if you want to. But um, I saw this program on another YouTuber's channel. They were using it, and I thought, I'm just going to give that a try and see how it goes. And so I've been using this for about a year, and I've been really pleased with how it works for me. It gives you a lot of data, and it's been very useful for my research as well. So let me go into it really quickly here. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to set up your portfolios. And just to show you, I do have the paid version here. If you want the free version, I think it limits you to one portfolio, but I have different portfolios, and that's signified by the single tile here. You can see I have a lot of Fidelity, and then I have my 401k. And then you can group your portfolios together, and that doesn't count towards the 10. And you can look at groupings. So if you want to look at say my dividend accounts for the retirement bridge years, then I've got a portfolio grouping here of taxable dividend accounts. If I want to look just at the retirement accounts and what dividends I get there, that's here. If I want to see just what's at Fidelity, and if I want to see the whole enchilada, it's my net worth. That's how I have it set up. But you can do this, myriad of different ways according to your situation. And then you have the option to connect them. I will tell you that I had difficulty with a couple of smaller banks. I tend to use community banks. They didn't do a really good job of connecting. It uses either Plaid or Yodlee, or I think there's one other. It doesn't come to mind right now, but you can choose between those two which one you want to use to connect to, and then also you can just leave it, not connected. You won't connect it, but you can just update it with uploads. So how I set this up was I went ahead and downloaded a file, and they have instructions here on Snowball Analytics how to do this. I downloaded a file from my broker, and then I uploaded it here, and it created the different accounts for me. I also did this for my 401k, and once I saw that that was accurate, then I went ahead and connected. Let's walk through this. So you've got your net worth, and it gives you, the value, any sort of profit you've made, and here they're showing some of the funds that were added as profit. So that's not quite as accurate as one would hope. Here you have the IRR, which is the internal rate of return, and it gives you a little bit of information about how that is calculated. And then lastly, it gives me my passive income, which is the dividend income for the year ahead. And it's only going to take into account, regular payments, and it's going to try to estimate those based on history. So, it's really just meant to give you a range. So diving in here, you've got an analytics section where you can really do a deeper dive into your holdings. You can see I have mutual funds, I have CDs, and I have target date funds here. So you can go by several different, they have tabs all over the place. Um, what sort of returns you're getting. They've got a dividends tab here that shows you historically, how you've been doing, um, your growth. You've got a couple of different charts here, and you can measure yourself against the S&P 500, and you can see that my portfolio pretty much matched the S&P 500, which really makes me quite pleased. And then in purple, I've got the amount that was originally invested. So it shows you that my portfolio really is performing very well. You can also see where we added in-house funds and all that good stuff. That's for the last year. And then it's got, a very variation of different metrics here. See the volatility, risk-adjusted return. Mine is good. It's a value over 2. It's considered to be good. Mine's on the extreme of the spectrum. I don't know if that's because I'm less risk adverse than many, I should say. Not all. There's some people out there that are doing stuff that I'm like, what? No. Um, but then you've also got your risk adjusted return, and I'm still good there. So it measures you against the S&P 500 to show you, how you're stacking up. And they do give you more information on that, and it goes into, they'll provide you with articles. If you really have questions, you can click out, and it goes into Investopedia to give you definitions and whatnot. So leaving that, we've also got a reporting tool, which it can be helpful. I kind of walked through this the other day because it was, a little bit newer to me, but um, it does do much more of a deep dive into your cash funds, turnovers, your profits, rate of returns, all that good stuff. Um, and it will measure you against the S&P 500, or you can choose another benchmark here. I can measure myself against the NASDAQ as well, or the Russell, or you can go anywhere, look at your holdings in the world. So now, portfolio. This is where you're getting into the actual data. So down in the weeds. So here you can see I have my holdings here. I have, the results in the last day, the dividend yield, the current value, the whole 9 yards, the cost basis. Um, so, that's very helpful to me just to take a look at what I've got, because it will condense my holdings throughout all of my accounts, all of my Enbridge throughout all the different accounts I have, and it will add it together. It will calculate out the cost per share, and it will show you how many portfolios I'm holding this particular investment in. And it will give me my dividend yield and the amount of dividends that I can expect per year. So it's very, very helpful. I also use it um, to make sure that it is keeping up with the actual, because remember, this is a connection, so you do have to sync it sometimes. It does run a full day behind. So you want to note that it runs a full day behind. So it's not up to date. And then you can look at your different transactions, as money moves from account to account, as you've got interest, you've got trades, income, cash. Um, and then this is where I think that this program, for me, is the most helpful, and that's the dividend calendar. So what it does is it will take and lay out your payments in a calendar so that you can have some idea of where your money is flowing, when it's flowing, and what you may get. So what it does is it will give you an estimate based on past performance. So here you're saying that I'm expecting a payout for a dividend for fund BTMK. This is in my 401k, and it historically paid, an average of 4 cents. And so it's estimating that it will do that again. And that will give me a 2.87% yield. And so as they announce, they'll go ahead and um, update this information uh, all the way until, when the payout is. And so you'll go through different colors. So here there's no color, or maybe more accurately gray. You really can't see it. There's a little gray line there. And then once they've announced, now it changes to blue. And so you can see they declared an 8% share before tax, and they've given us the ex-dividend date. So, the date that you need to hold it by to be able to get paid out. And then it tells you when the payment date is in 5 days. And so it's calculating out, according to my shares, what I should expect to see for a dividend payout. This is super helpful. Here's O, Realty Income. This is the most popular dividend stock in this, uh, according to this software tool, and I'll show you where to see that. But so they've announced a dividend share of 0.269, which is an increase, I think, from the last one. I'd have to check that, but the ex-dividend date was 11 days ago, and the payment date's in 3 days. So it's calculating at a 5.65% yield. Now, once it's already paid out, then it's going to turn to purple. So here we have an iShares interest rate hedged high yield bond ETF, and it's paying out 49 cents per share. I've got 52 shares. So I received $25.36, 7.33% yield. And it gives you, of course, the ex-dividend, the payment date, and the payout received. So, this is really helpful, of course, for, the current month that you're in. But I love how it keeps taking your estimates and going out. So I can go 1 year ahead. Let's see how far out I can go. I can do all of 2026. And I think that's as far out as I can go for now. But you can also see the actuals of the past. So that's really, really helpful. And, like I said, it does estimates. So if I look at, say, December, which is when a lot of my mutual funds pay out, and I did a video about that last year in December, how much I got paid out. It was a lot. I'll drop that here uh, for the for the information if you're interested in those funds. They're really good funds. Um, I am not a financial counselor. This is what I'm doing. If you choose to do it, that's fine, but I'm not telling you what to do. Um, but I'll drop that video here with my December update. But it's going to show you what you might see based on historical. So here's my Janice Henderson Enterprise Fund. This one I've had for a very, very long time, and it's been a performer. So it's showing you that historically, over time, the average is $9.72 a share, which is a 6.71% yield. It pays out annually, or wait, no, it pays out 2 times a year. But the big payment is in December. And so it's, estimating what they think that you're going to get before tax. What is annual? Okay, I'm thinking of another one. And then, about when you should expect it. And of course, it doesn't have a definite date here. Well, it does, but I mean, this is movable. It's estimating based on prior, because it's obviously not going to pay on a Saturday. Um, but, that will update as we get closer to the date. But you can see that I have, uh, a much larger payout in December. And again, that has to do with my funds, my mutual funds that are in my retirement accounts. So, here's another one. Windsor Large Cap Growth. And it's just showing you right now, it's telling me it's a 20% yield. That's a heck of a year last year. So it's giving me an estimate of what it may pay out in December. So again, these are all estimates, but it can be really, really helpful if you're planning out um, your year or you're trying to budget. So let me take it to my taxable dividend accounts only. That's how we're funding our 7 bridge years. My budget is $4,000 a month. I've gone over this before. I'll drop that video in here. And you can see I have now um, a monthly average of $5,900 in dividends. That is going to vary from month to month, which is why I wanted to get that monthly average with a lot of cushion. Um, but this gives me a little bit more of a comfort that we will be able to count on, somewhere in the realm of $4,000 a month. Anything extra, I've talked about how I would deal with that. I would go ahead and, keep it in my cushion. And then at the end of the year, take a look at how much the cushion is. And if I can peel some of that off and reinvest it in more growth funds for future use. This is doing a great job of helping me to lay all this out. My buckets are all set up with the assistance of this input. And I can see, in August, I've got some monthly payers that actually are paying twice just because they're actually not a monthly payer, they're every 4 weeks. So they're actually paying me twice. So I know that I'm going to get some amount of money above my 4,000. And so I can put that aside towards any months that might go under. Um, so anyway, this is a really helpful part of the program. And then you've got places where you can set a goal. I haven't set a goal, but you could. And then lastly, they've got this new reporting section, which is pretty much the reporting section that I already showed you under analytics. And then the tools area is very, very helpful. So if you want to rebalance your portfolio, I haven't done it, but you would have to set categories, and then it will assist you with making suggestions on how you can adjust your portfolio to reach a target percentage. So if you're just straight, doing a 80-20 or a 70-30 ratio for your investments, and of course your equities are going to grow faster in almost all cases, your equities are going to grow faster than your fixed income. So you go in periodically and you try to adjust that so that you're maintaining that ratio. And this can help you do that. Another feature that I used a lot when I was trying to figure out what to invest in is their top dividend stocks. So they have a particular way of rating the dividends stocks. So, they have an article they've provided of how they do it, but it has a lot to do with the stability of the company, meaning, the history, how long have they been paying a dividend? It has to do with their cash flow situation. It has to do with, um, are they so highly leveraged that if their debt was called in, they couldn't pay it? Or are they actually so highly leveraged that they're using leverage to pay their dividend, which is not considered very stable. So it's going to take a look at many different parameters to then generate that rating. And then you can actually filter this out. So if I only want to look at US stocks, then I can filter that there. Or if I want to look at a particular country, if I only want to look at, let's say I only want to look at um, financials, okay, then I can do that and search. And now it's only bringing up financials. It gives me the share price, it gives me the rating, the dividend yield, and the rate of dividend growth, which is a big deal if you're going to be living off this income. You want to see dividends that are going to grow because inflation is going to hit you. So, that's part of the rating. So let me just open one of these so we can take a look at it. Okay, so here we have the Progressive Corporation, and it has given it a score of 99 out of 100. It's reliable. So in the overview, it's going to show you the price history chart. It's going to give you some information on growth and their forecast. The dividend yield gives you a little synopsis about the company, some frequently asked questions and answers. And then as you move over into dividends, it'll give you the current information. The next ex-dividend date is July 3rd. You had to own stock before then. And then, of course, the growth over time, dividend growth streak. And then you can actually go back and see what it has paid out. So going back, I can see that it's at 10 cents for a while, but it does give at different times of the year, it will actually give, oh, it looks like it went, okay, so it went from an annual dividend to a monthly dividend. So it's portioning all that out. But it does seem to settle up in December. It's probably required to do so. That's what I see with some of these companies is they have to pass a certain amount onto investors for taxes. So anyway, given that, I would expect to see a larger distribution in December. And it would also, in Snowball, it would also go ahead and enter an estimate of what that might be for your December. And that's why my December is so high, is that I have companies that do things like this in my portfolio. So it gives you information about them, why they're reliable. And then what I like is you can actually go into the financials of the company. So you do actually have you've got the revenue, and then you can add the gross profit. You have charts that you can manipulate here. So if you're trying to decide whether or not you want to buy stock in a company, this is a really great way to do it. Um, you can look at let's look at the operating income and then the total operating expense. And so you can manipulate these graphs so that you can actually see, the financial situation. How is their outlook? Do you see if their revenue forecast looks good, if they maybe are seeing some issues the last few years? You can see all that. And you can go through the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, and then lastly, some statistics. So if you want to take a look at the price to earnings, and then we're going to look at the price to earnings versus the net income. So, there's all kinds of information that you can get here annually. And then if they have any information in the news, it'll give you a little rating about, is this positive outlook for the company? Is it negative? Is it neutral? Is it mostly negative? Blah, blah, blah. So you can go through that. And then lastly, community refers to the Snowball Analytics community. And it's just telling you, how many people own it, what are some similar stocks, And then are there any thoughts that people have added, or you can add your own thoughts. So I think it's a really great tool. And I use this to take a look at what I wanted to buy to supplement some of the other funds that I was already interested in. You can sort it by dividend yield. If you want to try to keep it safe, here's one that I actually did buy, and I'm holding it in my taxable dividends account. I get a payout from it monthly, and it shows you it's got a rating of 61 out of 100. They're still showing that as green, and I've got a dividend yield of 12%, and you are seeing dividend growth. So here's Bank of America. They've got a couple of different stock classes that you can buy. They're sitting at 65, and they have a payout ratio of 35%, dividend ratio of 6.25. So anyway, this is a super helpful program. And then there's also a dividend calendar and forecast, as well as the X dividend calendar. So you can see what's coming. And of course, you can look at, you can try to filter out. This is on popular. You can do S&P 500 stocks, what's coming up. We've got Comcast has a payment date of July 23rd, and the ex-dividend date was July 2nd, and it's quarterly. So it's just giving you an update on that. So that's super helpful. All right. And then lastly, there's a portfolio lab where you can kind of test out your strategies, but you can either create one from scratch, create a strategy from scratch, or you can copy it from your portfolio and then tweak it to be able to, reach your goals. And then lastly, find the dip is pretty cool. It shows you the stocks that you have and what the average is, say for 200 days, um, average for the last 10 days, see where your dips are. And then lastly, when you go to the community tab, you can see that it will tell you here are the most popular stocks and funds. So like I said, Realty Income, number one, it's a big dividend stock. NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. They're not necessarily the best pairs, but people get into dividends for a multitude of reasons. And so it's not always the highest dividend that you're looking for. Sometimes you have different purposes. And then for funds, SCHD, of course, that is extremely popular. And then it goes into some of the other, here's an index funds, and then it goes into some covered call strategy funds. To sum it up, I like Snowball Analytics very much. I paid $120 for the year. I would do that again, and I probably will, because it does give me a great deal of information that I use to plan out my budget. So yes, I would definitely buy this again. It does lack a dividend reinvestment feature. So that was really hard for me initially when I didn't have my taxable dividends set up for the bridge years. I only have my retirement funds, and everything's set to dividend reinvestment. And so there was no way for me to be able to watch that grow over time. So I had to just kind of look at it and think, okay, well, this is what the calendar looks like. And so this is what, my payout looks like. But knowing it was actually going to be higher than that because of the dividend reinvestment. So if they could improve anything, I would say, definitely add a dividend reinvestment. It has had issues if Plaid can't connect to your bank or your brokerage for any reason. And like I said, I had some smaller community banks that it wasn't going to connect to. It just wasn't going to happen. And so anyway, there's that. But I have Fidelity, it has no issues with that. Schwab has no issues with that. And I have my retirement through ADP, and it has no issues with, well, once in a while I'll have an issue with ADP, but I can very easily just, click sync now, and it'll go ahead and it'll sync it. But it's always a day behind. So just know that. But I highly recommend this software product. If you are a dividend investor, or if there's something you want to get into and you want to be able to research it, I find it to be super helpful. You can also just go ahead and search. Here's where I was looking into Palantir this week. So, it gives you so much information on these companies, very, very easy to find. And you can do this, I believe, with the free version. I think what the paid version really gives you, it gives you more portfolios up to 10. I think you can only do one. So you would probably hand enter all your investments, and you just wouldn't be able to track, you'd have to hand enter the purchases if it's more than one account. If it's one account, great. But I think it only gives you the one account. And then, but I think, well, I know you still have the dividend calendar. You still have the ability to look at the stocks and whatnot. I think the portfolio rebalancing might be a paid feature. If you're interested in getting Snowball Analytics, I have a link below. You'll get a little thank you gift from Snowball Analytics, and I will also get one. So, please feel free to use it. So if you like this kind of content, uh, please do like and subscribe. And other than that, please feel free to leave comments, your observations. If you're a Snowball Analytics user, put your comments in below. Let people know, how has your experience been using it, especially if you're overseas. I do not have as much experience with that. I know you can use it as an overseas user. I know that. But I'd like to hear your experiences. And lastly, like and subscribe, and have a fantastic rest of your week, and God bless.